Yes, please turn on your camera so that we can see your beautiful faces joining our session today. Okay, so we will take 3 shots. For the first shot, for the second shot, and for a final shot. Thank you all very much. And now I would like to invite Dr. Anita to have some words with our participants. Dr. Anita, kindly unmute yourself. Thank you.
Myself. Am I seen?
Yes.
Is it okay? Okay, just a moment. I cannot see your faces here. I wish to see. But anyway, thank you so much for your kind introduction, Ms. Chow. And good morning, everyone. Welcome back to our MOTP Series 2022-2023. And I would like to really acknowledge our regular participants in this modular online training program series. So we have participants from Cambodia, we have Malaysia, Myanmar, Thailand, Philippines, and Vietnam. And now we have new participants from Brunei and Indonesia. Am I right, Ms. Chow? You are most welcome to join us to today's training, and hopefully you will be joining us on the upcoming trainings that we will be having. Now, today we are going to start our training on Module 3, Teaching and Learning. Particularly today, there are 2 topics that we are going to explore. Topic 9, Student-Centered Instruction, and Topic 10, Inquiry-Based Instruction. And I look forward to your sharing of ideas, experience, and thoughts, and perhaps questions you would like to ask. And we are here to share our ideas and thoughts about questions you will be having in mind. You are most welcome. As already mentioned, this is a recorded recorded video presentation. So at this point in time, may I invite Ms. Chow to start taking the first topic, Student-Centered Instruction. Ms. Chow.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anita. So our ICT team, could you please share the video of our first topic? Thank you.
Hi everyone, welcome to our Module 3, Teaching and Learning. Today we are going to explore Topic 9, Student-Centered Instruction, and Topic 10, Inquiry-Based Instruction. Let's start with Topic 9, Student-Centered Instruction, with the following key points. What is student-centered instruction? How can the teacher make instruction a truly student-centered learning experience? And what are some student-centered approach activities? What is student-centered instruction? Student-centered instruction is a method of teaching that focuses on the individual needs of the students. It is the process of teaching that puts the students' needs first. This method of teaching is aware of students and their needs above and beyond anything else. It places students at the center of the learning process. The question is, how do we know the students' needs? To identify individual needs of students, teachers may look at many different sources for information. Sources might include a back-to-school survey at the start of the academic year, a record from the admission and enrollment about the students they are marketing and students that applied and accepted, the school records, the standardized testing, the work samples, and the reports from other teachers. Likewise, students can be given a range of options on the first day of class or even earlier through email, the LMS, the course description, or general expectations for how they want to provide information about their interests, preferences, past experiences, goals, among others. The options can include written forms, videos, audio, surveys, interviews, artwork, infographics. The list could go on and is limited only by the creativity of the faculty and the students. Use the information that is available to determine or predict who the students in your class will be and what their needs will be. Once they are enrolled, ask them. Understanding student characteristics and situational factors is a key to designing courses for significant learning. So, it should be a prerequisite for course design. As you consider making your classroom more student-centered, realize that this isn't a switch that you turn on and off, nor is it a checklist of unrelated activities. Instead, it is a gradual process that involves steps of interrelated elements. Only when you and your students become comfortable with these steps, you and your students are experiencing the benefits of a truly student-centered learning experience. This leads us to the second key point of my presentation. How can the teacher make instruction a truly student-centered learning experience? I would like to share with you 9 steps to make instruction a truly student-centered learning experience. Step 1. Educators are learners too. Step 2. Students talk much more. Step 3. Students have a voice in what and how they study. Step 4. Students have a role in assessment. Step 5. Learning connects to students' lives beyond school. Step 6. Intrinsic motivation is the ideal. Step 7. Learning tasks encourage thinking. Step 8. Teaching takes place in multiple ways. And step 9. Affect receives attention. Step 1. Educators are learners too. In today's knowledge-based economy and world, so much lies beyond the grasp of even the world's top experts. For instance, what is thought to be known may tomorrow be shown to be wrong. Students need to understand this reality. Teachers can aid this understanding by challenging students to individually and collaboratively search for more information, to build knowledge, to create new knowledge, and to teach it to their teachers and classmates. One of the benefits of teachers admitting a lack of knowledge is that this admission makes education more exciting, because students are no longer confined to learning what is already known. Currently, students are invited to join with teachers and others in a grand quest for greater understanding of our wonderfully complex world. A small step: find a time to admit that you, and probably all the experts on the topic the class is studying, do not know important information related to what the class is studying. It should not be long before an opportunity for such an admission arises. For example, in our research skills workshops on methodology, we talk about the fact that we are researchers too. And we admit that we are still struggling to improve our research skills so as to communicate more effectively with our audiences. Step 2. Students talk much more. Active learning is sometimes used as a synonym for student-centered learning. Active learning fits the cognitivists and socio-constructivists view that students construct their own learning. Language plays a crucial role in knowledge construction. That is why small group activities with 2 to 4 students feature prominently in much of student-centered learning because groups allow for more much student talk. Compare the quantity of student talk in a teacher-fronted classroom with that which occurs during group activities. With a teacher-dominated interaction pattern, only one person speaks at a time, and that person is usually the teacher. Even when the teacher is not speaking, there is still only one person, the student called on by the teacher, who speaks. In such a situation with a class of 50 students, only one student speaks at a time. That is 2% of the class. Contrast this with the same class of 50, but this time, students are talking in pairs. Now, 50% of the class are speaking. A small step. After speaking for a while, the teacher stops talking and gives students a short, doable question or task to do in pairs. This will help them process the content that was just delivered. As students interact, the teacher walks around and monitors what students have constructed in their minds. Many activities that students do in groups of 2. For instance, in a workshop on how to be a good group mate, students tell their partners about a successful group experience and analyze what made the group experience successful. Step 3. Students have a voice in and what they study. Cognitive psychologists suggest that instruction works best when it connects to students' current knowledge and interests. In other words, new learning needs to connect to students' schema, that is, their background knowledge. Furthermore, student engagement and ownership may increase when they are involved in deciding what and how they study. A small step. The teacher asks students to contribute examples on the topic that the class is studying. For instance, if the class is studying employee benefit packages, students can give examples from their work experience or from people in their social network or on the internet. Step 4. Students have a role in assessment. In the teacher-centered learning paradigm, teachers conduct all assessments as students are not deemed sufficiently competent to evaluate their own or their peers' work. However, involving students in assessment familiarizes them and helps them internalize assessment criteria. Another advantage of students participating in assessment is that now many people offer feedback. As a result, students received more immediate feedback, and this facilitates more task improvement. Nonetheless, students cannot be expected to provide assessment of the same depth that teachers provide. Thus, rubrics assessment is recommended for peer and self-assessment by students with prior discussion and practice in using the rubrics assessment tool to enhance student feedback for task improvement. A small step. For an assignment, students are given a rubric or checklist which is discussed in class. Before the assignment is handed in, students exchange their assignments with a peer who looks through their partner's work and highlights at least 3 points in the rubric or checklist that the partner has done well. The checker's name appears on the student's work. Step 5. learning connects to students' lives beyond school. In the teacher-centered learning classroom, students learn in order to cover the syllabus and prepare for summative assessments. In contrast, the student-centered learning paradigm seeks to closely connect learning to the outside world, as expressed in this quote from Dewey, who pioneered many of the concepts embraced by student-centered learning. The acquisition of skills is not an end itself. They are things to be put to use, and that use is their contribution to a common and shared life. A small step. Teachers learn about students' lives and interests. They look for examples that fit students' lives. For instance, if students hope to find jobs in a particular industry after graduation, teachers use examples from that industry or ask students for such examples. Step 6. Intrinsic motivation is the ideal. In the teacher-centered classroom, teachers act as the main motivators of students, giving praise and using grades to encourage students to study hard. In other words, motivation is external, that is, extrinsic. When extrinsic motivation may seem necessary in order to encourage students to prepare for and attend class, complete assignments, and perform in summative assessments, it does not grow students' interest in what they are studying. Indeed, studying just to gain rewards may dampen any interest that students might have originally. The student-centered classroom, on the other hand, seeks to develop intrinsic motivation. Such motivation coming from within is more likely to be sustainable. Many of the previous steps work toward the development of intrinsic motivation. For instance, step 1 invites students to join the community of scholars who are searching for understanding and applications. Steps 2 and 3 encourage students to be more active and to play a greater role in shaping their learning. And step 5 helps students discover the importance for themselves and others of what they are studying. A small step. Teachers stop class 5 minutes before it is scheduled to end and ask students to write briefly on what was the most interesting idea in today's class, how that idea could be useful for them and others, and how they could find out more about that idea. This helps to encourage metacognitive reflection, a quality exhibited by highly motivated students. Step 7. Learning tasks encourage thinking. In teacher-centered classrooms, students focus on absorbing the information dispensed to them by teachers and lesson materials and being able to reproduce that information in assignments and exams. The student-centered learning paradigm takes that a step further by asking students to elaborate and build on the information given. The teacher-centered learning model is built on the premise of the past where information was limited and difficult to find. However, in today's knowledge-based world, information is plentiful and easily accessible. What matters now and in the future is the ability to elaborate on that information, to understand, teach, apply, analyze, evaluate, and synthesize that information by creating and building new information. A small step. Ask students to take what the class is studying and imagine teaching that information or concept to the person sitting next to them on a bus, or a younger family member, or one of their grandparents. In other words, students need to explain what they have learned to someone with little or no background on the topic. It might seem that it is easier to explain something to someone without much prior knowledge, but in reality, such explanations require a deep understanding. Step 8. Teaching takes place in multiple ways. Teacher-centered learning focuses on didactic teaching, where the teacher stands in front of the class and lectures on the key concepts and knowledge, perhaps with the help of pictures, PowerPoint presentations, or videos. This single direction flow of information conflicts with another lesson from cognitivism and socio-constructivism, that is, that different people learn in different ways. In other words, to help students to learn, a variety of teaching strategies should be employed. A small step: ask students to create visuals to illustrate key concepts. Visuals include graphic organizers such as mind maps, flow charts, Venn diagrams, and graphs, as well as drawings, photographs, and videos. These visuals should be integrated with words, either spoken or written. Role plays offer another means of teaching via multiple modes. And step 9, affect receives attention. Test scores dominate in the teacher-centered learning paradigm. Affect concerns like classroom environment and student emotions are ignored. Student-centered learning emphasizes both results and emotion. This meets step 6, intrinsic motivation. Lifelong learners need to find learning engaging. What good is reading if students despise it? Educators should make the classroom a place where students have emotional stability, social relationships, self-esteem, and opportunity to grow their potential. A small step: both students and teachers who are rude can make it hard to create learning environments. Teachers can set a good example of civility by, for example, avoiding sarcasm and being respectful to all students, even the ones who aren't very smart or who aren't very nice to their teachers or peers. Using doable tasks is another way to take into account how emotions affect learning. We try to boost students' self-confidence and get them to believe that we can help them by giving them tasks that we know they can do well based on our experience. We also help students do well by having them work in pairs with someone from a different country or culture. Keeping this in mind, we discuss some student-centered activities. This leads us to the last key point of my presentation. What are some student-centered approach activities? Some student-centered approach activities include think, pair, share, hold a debate, random calling, task questions, and minute papers. Think, pair, share. Pose a question, scenario, or cognitive task and ask students to think about and jot down their answers. After sufficient time for most students to complete their first step, ask students to join one or two others sitting nearby and quickly share answers. After sufficient time, call on one or more students to share their answers. When using an audience response technology such as clickers, ask all students to submit an answer. Based on responses, clarify, elaborate, or answer questions before moving on to a new topic. Hold a debate. Split the group in 3 and give them a motion. One group argues for the motion, one argues against it, and the final group judges. All groups have to stay fully engaged with the topic until the end and should come out of the debate thoroughly informed on the issue. Again, this can be in person or via a live training session held in your LMS. Random calling. The instructor informs the call that students will be selected at random to respond to a question, perhaps using a shuffled deck of index cards with students' names. Then the instructor poses the question to the class and remains silent for 10 seconds to allow everyone to think through an answer. After a sufficient pause, perhaps after peer instruction, the instructor selects the student at random to share thoughts about the answer. Then the instructor calls on another student at random to comment on the first student's response. Test questions. Ask students to generate possible exam questions. either individually or with other students, regardless of whether the questions are used for actual exams. Then discuss those questions as a class, determining both the correct answer as well as the extent to which it is a viable exam questions and why. This process not only fosters learning of the content the questions cover, but trains students to better anticipate actual exam items. And minute papers. The instructor asks the students to write a quick response to a question regarding the day's lecture. This exercise is typically done at the end of class and turned in as students exit. Minute papers prompt students to review the day's lesson before they leave the room. Questions for minute papers might include: what was the most important concept you learned today? What was the most confusing concept? What question could you ask about today's material? What will stick or will not stick in your brain from today's class? Or what points do you want to make sure you retain for the next exam? I have just finished my presentation. I would like to end our session with a few thoughts. A student-centered instruction focuses on students' needs and characteristics. Teachers find ways to know their students better. When the needs of the students are met, learning can flourish. In the student-centered instruction, the role the teacher is more of facilitator than the person who does most of the talking. This change has a positive impact on the learning process since the learners are the most important participants in the classroom. They become more active and take responsibility for their own learning. Students are engaged in a learning environment which is characterized by interaction, meaningfulness, authenticity, and motivation. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anita, for your insightful video. And now we will head into our Q&A session for this topic. So, dear participants, should you have any questions, please type them into the chat box or unmute yourself to ask and discuss with Dr. Anita. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for watching the video. And I hope that by this time, you already have something in mind that you would like to share with us about student-centered instruction. We are all teachers and we know what does it mean, I suppose, but perhaps it will also be good to discuss about our experience teaching using student-centered instruction. Perhaps you have the good practices as well as challenges that you'd like to share with us. And perhaps you have captured some items, some ideas from the video that triggers you, that you would like to share. Now, before you will say something, I would like just to emphasize my understanding about student-centered instruction. I would say student-centered instruction focuses on the needs of the students, the characteristics of the students. It is different from student-centered learning. In the student-centered learning, the central of the teaching learning experience is the learning styles of the students, the multiple intelligence, and other things. So it is centered in the really, student maximizing the learning opportunity to improve their understanding, to be able to be competent in that particular area where we are teaching our students. But in the student-centered instruction, we teachers focus on the needs of the students. Maybe it will also be good to identify or to describe what are these needs of the students. You and I know that our students come from different cultures, family cultures, peer culture, community culture, school culture. It's mixed up. Now, by needs, I would rather exemplify by enumerating the different needs of our students. We have the emotional needs, psychological needs, intellectual needs, physical needs, biological needs. Are we able to reach out our students and identify their individual needs and listen and understand them? I'd like to share with you my experience back in the university where I was teaching in tertiary education. And I happened to be in the committee of screening participants applying for university scholarship. I was surprised when I was having this interview with the students and asking them about their concerns, their difficulties. And a few students, to my surprise, it's a big university. And I thought that, students smile and they're very outspoken outside, they're dynamic. But I see inside they are broken. Students during that interview cried a lot because of family problems. They said the emotional aspect. So there's a quarrel between parents and the parents are separated. And that affects so much of the student. That's just an example of the emotional needs of the students, see. And there are more, we know that. Students, are being abused and many things happen if we try to explore the experience of the students. Now, another thing also in that university is that we found out that there are students who come to the school with, could not even have their breakfast because the family, the parents could not afford to give them the regular budget for their food. So many things. Now, what I am telling now is that in the student-centered instruction, we look into the needs of our students and find ways that we could address these needs. Not necessarily, for example, in the financial aspect, not necessarily that we get money from our pocket, but we can find ways. We can reach out stakeholders, community, and many ways that we can do to help address the needs of our students. Because I believe that when the needs of our students are addressed, learning can flourish. We see the potential of the students, but we would like to bring out the potential of the students. We would like to develop their self-worth, their self-confidence. That is our purpose, that we would like them to become productive citizens, to lead in their own family, in the community, wherever they are. We need leaders. We need people who can stand. Because I always believe that when people are strong, the nation, the country is strong. We are building our youth to be leaders in their own community, in the community, in our country. So we start from knowing, addressing their needs, individual needs of the students, their characteristics, their attitudes. And why is that? Why is not my student so passive? Or why is this student so outspoken? Then knowing our students better would help us design our course or redesign our course or our curriculum and will help us also to identify the strategy that we use in teaching them. I'm sorry, maybe I have talked so much this time. I would like you to have your own voice now. Maybe you would like to share your experiences or ask questions. Okay, Michelle, is this the first question I
we're
found
having
here?
several questions in the chat box.
Yeah,
starting with Miss Gentile Flynn.
Okay, thank you for this question, Miss Chunky Finn. What are characteristics of active learning if compared to student-centered instruction? Okay, now, you see, when we speak of active learning, we are referring to learning by doing. So, students are engaged and involved in the process of that learning experience. That's active learning. So it is definitely not, asking students to do like teacher-centered learning. No, it's really opposite when you say active learning. It's learning by doing, as I said. And now you see, if compared to student-centered instruction, that's a quite good, question. But see, in the student-centered instruction, we of course engage our students to involved in the process of learning. But in that aspect, since we know our students, we know who our students better, so we are able to design particular activities of the students who are maybe shy students who are passive, and those students who are very active, or students who are in, high level competency, and we have students middle competency, and we have low performing students. So we classify it that way since we know our students. So we address the level of competency of our students in the activity, in asking them to do something. Okay. So you're going to design the instructional activities that would address to their needs, because if they are going to give quite difficult activity to maybe low performing students, that might be very challenging for them, and they will shy away from doing. So, but still, we've got to have them to be in active learning process. Okay. I hope I have answered your question, but then you can always do a follow-up question. Now we have here from Maria Luana Del Mundo. Between face-to-face learning and online learning, it appears that student-centered learning is more feasible for face-to-face learning. Can you please suggest strategies on how to make online learning more student-centered? Okay, yeah, very good question. Yeah, you're right. No, like face-to-face learning is, I would say, very potential for student-centered instruction, because you can really connect to the students right there, and the monitoring is very apparent, and you observe, because part of knowing our student is also through observation. But then online learning is another thing, it's another aspect. The question is how to make online learning more student-centered. I suppose you can, this is another thing here, because in the online learning, you are going to address students like distance, and you don't know whether the students are really like doing what you are asking them to do. No, because there is no face-to-face contact, but you can still do it by I guess you're going to call your student, each of them, and allow them to participate, because sometimes in the online learning, we are prone to see students, those who are active, but we might miss students who are not responsive. That's one thing. Another thing is that we can connect to parents and ask our parents whether the students, the activities, their children, what they are doing, to the partner with the parents. And another thing that you can also do is maybe you can conduct a survey and find out what are the needs of the students. And then it's just a checklist to know what are the needs of your students out there, and get the feedback, and then design your teaching and the way you deliver your lesson and activities, addressing to the needs of the students. It could be. Because we can only know our students better by communicating where they are at. What level of competency are they in at this point? Are they understanding or not? So we can do some survey, checklist. Survey is quite good. But we see the purpose is really trying to reach out and helping students to maximize the learning process. Okay. And we have here, okay, Hamarani, thank you, Hamarani, for your comment. Now we have from Karen Bangilisan, in the context of student-centered instruction, how are we going to strengthen this in a high-plex learning mode of delivery? What are the primary challenges of the teacher in having a student-centered instruction? Oh, thank you for this question. It's a quite interesting question, Karen. Now, I understand that what you are telling about high-plex learning is that there are students online and students face-to-face online and on-site. Am I okay? That's how I understand what high-plex learning is. It's different from blended learning. Am I correct, Karen? Do we have the same understanding? Okay, now the question is, okay, right, thank you so much. The question is, the primary challenges of the teacher having student-centered instruction. That's really a very challenging one, because you've got to be able to address students who are online and students who are on site. And it is very challenging on the part of the teacher, because in the interaction itself, some students are, like passive. Some students would like our attention, and we cannot just, do one thing at the same time, unless we are so much prepared for that. I think the primary or the biggest challenge of teacher here is to get the attention of the students, to make the students engage both online and on-site. We had a survey here in Vietnam about hybrid learning. And that one challenge, biggest challenge of the teacher is how to engage students in a student-centered learning, both the online and on-site together in that session, in a particular class. So then the teacher mentioned that they need training. They should be trained. Teachers must be trained to teach high flex learning. They feel that they're not ready. So one big challenge aside from engaging students both online and on-site is the teacher readiness to be able to maximize high flex learning. And for that, I guess the school should prepare teachers to teach in high flex learning, high flex teaching and learning. That same thing in the student-centered instruction, because basically, in the student-centered instruction, you've got to really know your students better, their backgrounds, their needs. But you would only be able to succeed doing the student-centered instruction if you put the students' needs at the heart of your instruction. But you have to define, you have to identify their needs. Of course, in the online learning, the students have different needs, I suppose. One is the internet connection. And the other one is the family, the setup of the family. And just many things to consider. How do we address that? I guess it will really take a group of teachers to be able to discuss and find ways to address the needs of the students, both online and on-site, to make the teaching a truly student-centered learning experience. Okay, we have here from Sarim Hiang. I am curious to know if there can be a tool or a checklist used to evaluate the instruction in student-centered. I have encountered a tool, but maybe I can send that to you. I don't have that in mind now. But you can as well create your own tool, your own instrument based on the context of the context of your students, in a manner that it will be more authentic on the part of the students. Okay. But it's good to prepare a checklist. How is that? When we define the needs of the students, we look into their what are the barriers perhaps that would disrupt their learning process. So we talk about their physical needs, emotional needs, social needs, intellectual needs, different needs that we can be, and we are going to incorporate that one in our tool to be able to know the needs of our students. Okay, so now we have from Dominic Makiran. How do recent discourses on agency and dispositions contribute to the student-centered instruction? It's a very interesting question. I would say, I guess what you are referring here on agency and dispositions, I suppose, would be the voice and the attitudes, attitudes of the students, particularly on students, and how would that be able to affect the student-centered instruction. This point, we are still having, like recovering from the pandemic, and we know the different concerns, and difficulties and problems of our students. And I suppose we've got to help our students able to prepare themselves for, like, I guess at this point in time, we are transitioning from online to face-to-face teaching. And it will help much, if we are going to listen and to understand and to prepare our students to the shift of the face-to-face instruction. That's, we have to address again the needs of our students in that manner. However, if you would like to add on, Dominic, you can just grab your mic and you can say something. I invite you to illustrate more. Maybe I have not gotten that much, what you are trying to point out here, but you can articulate that, you can speak it out. Okay, thank you too, Karen. Okay, now we have from Sarim, Yang, it may be helpful as well if you can share the sample tools so I can bank on it for contextualization. Okay, noted. I'll share that later. Sarim, I'll take note on that. So we have from Norven. Yes, the readiness of the teacher to engage, explore, and experience with the learners are very essential in our day-to-day task. Okay, thank you so much. And thank you too for your insight, Norvin. Thank you. Now, I suppose you have different activities that would enhance, the student-centered instruction. In my presentation, I only shared with you few samples, but I suppose you have more that would develop the confidence of our students. This is our aim at teaching them, not only enriching their minds, their cognitive level, but we are also developing and building their emotional stability. Because we know that there are lots of unspoken concerns and experience of our students that need to be uncovered. And perhaps students would just want someone to listen and that we are there. Because we develop our students holistically. We develop the entirety of our students. Their emotion matters a lot. We can only maximize the learning process of our students, that learning experience, when we as well develop their emotions. when we establish their self-confidence, their self-worth, that matters a lot. So that is one very essential in student-centered instruction. That is the reason why we have to address the needs, because the needs are behind. They are not seen. We have to uncover them and see what we can do to make our students strong. They may be intellectually strong, but they're emotionally weak. That is the center of student-centered instruction. As I said earlier, it's different from student-centered learning. So it is encompassing. Student-centered instruction is encompassing. Like inquiry-based instruction is a student-centered instruction, which we are going to discuss in the next session. Now, I know you have your own ways of doing it, but this is just what I would like to emphasize, that student-centered instruction is focusing on the needs of the students. Behind it is the idea, is the goal that is to build the emotional aspect of the students, to make the students confident, to boost their morale, their self-worth. That's the difference of student-centered instruction. Perhaps the pedagogies that we are using, other like collaborative learning, we have differentiated instruction, we have project-based learning, different approaches of teaching, really are behind, under the umbrella of student-centered instruction. So the student-centered instruction is the top. And then it can be approached, it can be broken down to different pedagogies. Okay. Ms. Chow, I hope, are there still some?
Yes, I believe that's all the questions I can see.
Okay, thank you so much.
And thank you to all our dear participants for your interesting questions and discussion for Dr. Anita regarding our first topic. We will now have a short break and we will come back at 10:20 for our video of topic number 10. Thank you very much to all.
Thank you so much, and see you in our next session.
Welcome back to all dear participants. We will now watch the video of the second topic on inquiry-based instruction. May the ICT team please support us to show the video, please. Thank you very much.
Welcome back to the second topic of today's session, topic 10, inquiry-based instruction, we're going to explore the following key points. What is inquiry-based instruction and what forms of inquiry are commonly used? What are the phases of inquiry-based instruction? And what challenges have teachers encountered in inquiry-based instruction and what solutions have they found? What is inquiry-based instruction and what forms of inquiry are commonly used? Inquiry-based instruction is a student-centered approach where the students are involved in their learning, create essential questions, investigate widely, and then construct new understandings, meanings, and knowledge. That knowledge is new to the students and may be used to answer their essential questions, to develop a solution, or to support a position or point of view. The knowledge is usually presented to others and may result in some sort of action. Distinct from the routine question-answer information exchange, the inquiry-based instruction lays special emphasis on the core concepts of cognitive and discovery learning, and its goal is to develop higher-order thinking. It combines the curiosity of students and the scientific method to enhance the development of critical thinking skills while learning the content. They formulate questions, explore problems, observe, and apply new information in seeking a better understanding of the world. Inquiry-based instruction is an approach to teaching and learning that places students' questions, ideas, and observations at the center of the learning experience. Teachers use different forms of inquiry to enhance the investigative skills of the students. The commonly used forms of inquiry include confirmation inquiry, structured inquiry, guided inquiry, and open inquiry. Confirmation inquiry. Confirmation inquiry involves the teacher providing the students with all the essential elements for investigation. Within this process, the teacher provides the questions and procedures that guide the students' inquiry process to achieve a predetermined result. The goal is to use the skills of the students to confirm the result. The method effectively strengthens prior knowledge obtained from previous lessons. This enables students to reinforce their existing knowledge and to practice their investigative skills, such as following procedures, collecting data, recording data, and confirming the results. Structured inquiry. In the structured inquiry, students are given the question and the method of achieving the result. The teacher establishes parameters and procedures for inquiry. Students are provided with a hands-on problem to investigate as well as the procedures and materials necessary to complete the investigation. Students discover relationships between variables or generalize from data collected, which in essence leads to the discovery of expected outcomes. However, this approach differs from confirmation inquiry as students generate their own results and generate an explanation of the results supported by the evidence they have collected. The goal is to provide an explanation of the results that is already supported by the evidence gathered during and through the investigative process. Structured inquiry develops students' research skills of following procedures, analyzing the data, reflecting the data, and explaining the findings. Guided inquiry. In the guided inquiry, the teacher provides the students with a problem for investigation as well as the necessary materials or a research question that prompts them to design various procedures to generate differing results. The students are expected to devise their own procedure to solve the problem. These results are then examined and compared, subsequently developing higher order critical thinking skills. Just because students are designing their own procedures does not mean that the teacher's role is passive. To the contrary, students need guidance as to whether their investigation plans make sense. And open inquiry. In open inquiry, students have the purest opportunities to act like scientists, forming their own questions, designing investigative methods, carrying out investigations, and presenting the results. This form of inquiry requires the most scientific reasoning and greatest cognitive demand from students. With ample experience at the first three forms of inquiry, students can successfully conduct open inquiries. It is only appropriate to have students conducting open inquiries when they have demonstrated that they can successfully design and carry out investigations when provided with the question. This includes being able to follow procedures of the investigation, record and analyze data, as well as draw conclusions from the evidence they have collected and report the findings. Students can experience multiple forms of inquiry during a single unit with related scientific concepts. With this in mind, let's continue to key point 2 of my presentation. What are the phases of inquiry-based instruction? I would like to share 5 phases of inquiry-based instruction that are scholarly-based approach. Phase 1, orientation. Phase 2, conceptualization. Phase 3, investigation. Phase 4, conclusion. And Phase 5, discussion. Phase 1, orientation. In the orientation phase, teachers present the students with the topic. The teacher will provide the foundations that are required to understand the topic. The teacher may also define a problem that needs to be solved. Teachers start an inquiry-based learning session by presenting a topic in an engaging or inspiring way. In this stage, the teachers are the provocateur. Their job is to build engagement, excitement, and curiosity. An orientation may be a video presentation from a guest speaker or a book. Sometimes teachers present their students with a cartoon, article from a local newspaper, or provocative YouTube video, among others. The key here is to simultaneously motivate the students to learn and give the foundations for follow-up inquiry. Phase 2, conceptualization. In the conceptualization stage, students come up with a plan for how they might learn more about their topic. Teachers might ask students to come up with a research question and develop an action plan for investigating the question. During the conceptualization stage, the teacher works on releasing some control over the lesson's direction to the students. The teacher uses the students' questions and comments from phase 1 to stimulate a round of question-posing discussion. The teacher might ask the students to present their own questions, or if a stringent curriculum outcome needs to be met, the teacher may present a question of her own. Central to this phase is the development of a question or problem. Without a question, there would be no subsequent inquiry. Once an inquiry question is in place, either posed by the students or teacher, the teacher should require the students to come up with an action plan to address the question. One common way to do this is to get students to break up into groups and come up with an action plan. Such questions as, how will we answer this question? What resources will we need? What are the steps we need to take? Phase 3, investigation. In the investigation phase, students will actively explore the topic through research, experimentation, exploration, observation, and data collection. These should also record their data for follow-up reflection. The investigation phase should be a student-centered phase in which the students actively seek out answers. Students use the procedures they put together in phase 2 to conduct their inquiry. The role of the teacher is to facilitate this exploration, gather the required resources, and facilitate group discussion. Some subject-specific examples may be, in science class, this phase may involve conducting a confirmation inquiry by designing an experiment where students determine how stopping distance is related to the slope of a surface. In chemistry class, this phase often involves conducting controlled or structured inquiry. In physics class, it may involve engineering an experiment to observe gravity, a guided inquiry. In history class, it may involve going to a local historical site and examining landmarks or buildings of interest, an open inquiry. Phase 4, conclusion. During the conclusion phase, students should look at the data they collected and see what new answers they have. Students should look at the research questions they devised in phase 2 and see if they can now answer it. The conclusion phase is an opportunity to reflect on the data collected and analyze it. Students should get together and compare their findings to the research questions. Have they answered the questions they set before starting the inquiry? How can they present this information in new ways? And what new questions do they have? This phase may end with presenting a new hypothesis, statement of belief, or model for explaining a phenomenon. With older students, you could use phrases like data organization, synthesizing, generating a hypothesis, and data interpretation. And phase 5, discussion. In the discussion phase, students should explore the implications of their new knowledge. Questions should include, what does this mean? How does this impact my beliefs and understanding? And how can I use this knowledge in the future? Discussions at the end of an inquiry should have students thinking forward. The teacher facilitates this discussion and asks prying questions that stimulate higher order thinking. Students should be asked how their thinking, beliefs, or conceptions about the topic have changed. A good question might be, how does this new knowledge change your feelings about this topic? Or, what is something that surprised you during this investigation? Finally, ensure students leave with more questions. There are always new questions that emerge when we push our horizons of knowledge. Have students leave the class inspired to learn more. While this can be a beneficial method of instruction for students and instructors, there are some challenges with inquiry-based instruction. This leads us to the last key point of my presentation. What challenges have teachers encountered in inquiry-based instruction, and what solutions have they found? I would like to illustrate some challenges to this style of instruction and the measures you can take to overcome them. Challenge number 1, teacher mindset and preparedness. Challenge number 2, student readiness. Challenge number 3, student lack of spark and initiative. Challenge number 4, questioning. Challenge number 5, portfolios. And challenge number 6, assessments. Challenge number 1, teacher mindset and preparedness. Teachers must have a clear understanding of the value of creating a learner-centered classroom and develop the essential skills to facilitate inquiry-based learning. Changing the problem is not easy because traditional face-to-face teaching is more structured, more measurable, and gives the teacher more control, and because that's how the teachers themselves were taught. However, the effectiveness of inquiry-based instruction depends on the guidance given by teachers. Inquiry-based instruction without proper or with only minimal guidance may not work for students who have less prior knowledge or skills in a particular area. When the demands of learning activities exceed students' abilities, the learning process can be blocked. Solution. It is very important to prepare teachers to act as guides in inquiry-based instruction, to develop good questions to be examined, to monitor students' research process, and to provide guidance when they encounter difficulties. Teachers should also provide feedback to their students on an ongoing basis and encourage them to continuously evaluate their own learning. This change allows teachers to differentiate and support their students' individual needs, increasing interaction with those who have had difficulties, and asking provocative questions to challenge the more advanced students' understanding of the topic. Challenge number 2, student readiness. Students involved in this type of setting must have the capacity to inquire and make decisions on their own. As inquiry is a self-directed form of learning, they must be comfortable with taking responsibility for their own learning without relying on someone telling them what to do on a continuous basis. While this does provide for student agency and voice, students may not work well in an unstructured environment if they are unprepared or unequipped for this type of learning. Solution. The critical solution to this potential problem is to teach the skills of the inquiry process to students. All students have the capacity to ask great questions and to make judgments about the information they are researching. However, they must be taught these skills. Use a structured inquiry process and teach students how to use this process. Structured inquiry provides a scaffold for self-directed learning that enables all students to feel supported along the way. Challenge number 3, student lack of spark and initiative. Particularly in guided inquiries, students can lose their spark quickly. This can happen if they don't feel engaged in the content or in their learning. While students typically ask their own questions, they may come to a point where they just aren't as engaged. For an inquiry to produce beneficial results, learning needs to be meaningful. However, students' levels of engagement can fluctuate throughout the inquiry process. This is normal. Striking the right balance of keeping students motivated while also challenging them is critical. If the student skills are higher than what is needed for the program, they become bored. On the other hand, if students do not have the skills with which to solve a problem, frustration ensues. Solution. Spend time discovering what makes students excited, engaged, and eager to discover more. Try asking students, what topics are important and interesting to you? Or what deep questions do you have about the world around you? The formulation of questions and the development of a plan for learning requires a bit of background knowledge. If a student picks a topic they know nothing about, this can cause problems later on. It is a good idea for students to have some background knowledge on their topic before diving in. Challenge number 4, questioning. Asking questions to drive learning is at the heart of the inquiry model. When teachers are unsure of how to manage this process, they may default to asking close content-specific questions, and the rigor of authentic inquiry is lost. It is important for the teachers to have a proper grasp of how to ask effective questions to guide their students toward curricular outcomes while still enabling learners to think deeply and critically about their own learning. If the teacher is lacking in this area, it has a trickle-down effect on students as they will not learn the basics of effective questioning, reasoning, and problem solving. Solution. The solution is to ask questions that connect to the essential understandings and deep concepts of the curriculum rather than to specific areas of surface level content. These questions are open to a range of perspectives and inspire a range of responses. Students will discover the content more readily when they understand and explore the purpose and relevance of learning it. Challenge number 5, portfolios. Learner portfolios become the collection point for evidence of learning in an inquiry-based classroom as students work at their own pace and level. Portfolios showcase student work and reinforce the teacher's grading. But most importantly, they provide an ongoing opportunity for feedback, enabling students to improve and progress as they build upon previous learning. If teachers do not manage this process well, they may revert to relying on summative assessment tasks to determine progress. This is very time-consuming as these assessments are usually large pieces of work that must be individually graded. Solution. The solution for teachers is to focus on collecting evidence of learning against achievement standards throughout the learning process. When teachers are able to assign a level of achievement and provide formative feedback in the moment, they add this to the learner portfolio, which becomes a progressive report of achievement rather than a filing cabinet to be sorted out later. And challenge number 6, assessments. The nature of inquiry-based learning does not lend itself to traditional models of assessment. The teacher-centered paradigm of pre-preparing assessments that are designed to confirm retention of predetermined knowledge will not work well in an inquiry setting. This model will standardize and effectively limit the levels of achievement to those that have already been decided by the teacher. When this happens, individual pathways and potential for personalized learning goals are lost. Solution. The solution is for the teacher to work from within the process, capturing evidence of learning and higher order thinking as students are developing these skills. From the very beginning of a unit of inquiry, teachers create an opportunity for diagnostic assessment by asking an essential question. Listening to student voice through their responses will provide a wealth of information about prior knowledge and experience, perspective, ability, and interest, while engaging all learners in a conversation that builds curiosity. Ongoing, real-time, formative assessment is the answer here and requires an interactive role from the teacher to provide formative feedback and support students to develop their learning goals. I have just finished my presentation and I would like to close it with a few thoughts. Inquiry-based instruction is one of the most popular approaches to education in the 21st century. It promotes student-centered learning, problem-solving, and critical thinking. It's a strategy that not only teaches content, but also higher-order thinking skills. The 4 forms of inquiry, confirmation, structured, guided, and open, are tools to advance the investigative skills of the students through the 5 phases of inquiry-based instruction, namely Phase 1 orientation, Phase 2 conceptualization, Phase 3 investigation, Phase 4 conclusion, and Phase 5 discussion. Like any methods of instruction, inquiry-based instruction has its challenges as well as measures to overcome them. Thus, inquiry-based instruction should be authentic and reflect problems and events that impact our world. It should help students become more creative and resourceful in their problem solving and encourage the development of essential skills such as planning, organizing, processing, designing, interpreting, and reporting. Thank you for your participation.
So should you have something that you would like to share while we were waiting for the questions? So,
Okay,
please.
thank you. Now I can hear you.
Yes.
As I mentioned during our first session, that inquiry-based instruction is focusing on the students' questions, ideas, thoughts, perspectives. Simply put it in this way, inquiry-based instruction is building the higher order thinking skills of our students. And with that, then we have a very commonly used forms of inquiry. Sometimes they are called levels of inquiry. We have the confirmation inquiry, we have the structured inquiry, guided inquiry, and open inquiry. All those forms of inquiry are helping our students to think critically, to be mindful of what's happening around them, and ask questions and find answers to their questions. They would be able to see what's going on and do something, improve. And that is the purpose of inquiry-based instruction. We are training our students to become critical thinkers, to become students engaged in what's happening around, not only in the classroom, but in the world, and contribute something in building a family, a community, in the society, and so on. So we understand then that in the classroom, we have the content, of course. We teach science, history, math, and different subjects, different disciplines. But along with studying the content, we are building the thinking skills of our students. From the lower order thinking skills to higher order thinking skills. Of course, the lower order thinking skills like remembering, comprehension, analysis, they are very, very important. We cannot proceed to higher thinking if they are not well established. But then we are building, we are making, kind of scaffolding our students to become creators, inventors, designers for development, improvement. So that's basically what inquiry-based instruction. I'm pretty sure you are using that in the school. So perhaps at this point in time, we can share our experiences, how we manage it in the class, and what are our challenges as well, our practices and challenges, and how do we address these challenges with the goal of building, helping our students to become creators, inventors, engage in the community they are in. So at this point, perhaps you already have much to share. Michelle, do we have?
Yes, we have some questions and comments. Start with the comments from Mr. Emmanuel Yep.
Oh, welcome Mr. Iman. Yeah, welcome back. We miss you a lot. Okay. Beautiful morning. Yeah. Good morning too. Perhaps now in the Philippines, I guess it's about 11 or 12. I don't know. And here's my query. I have been thinking of challenge to student readiness in this kind of instruction. Students must contribute and speak up during inquiry-based learning. This is often a positive development, but I'm worried that there's also a chance that least quick-witted kids would feel embarrassed during this process. Would this be possible? Yeah, yes, I understand. Truly, it's really, it's really a challenge for teachers to balance, uh, students. See, because we have students who are really very witty, quick, smart students who can easily grasp ideas and come up with this. There are also like students who are just average, and there are also like low performing students in terms of in that aspect, for instance. And it is very much possible that those students who is not that maybe active, I would say, I hope I get what you are saying here, would feel embarrassed during the process. But how do we prevent that? How do we prevent that to happen so that students feel that they belong, that they are part, they are a member, that they are accepted, that all of them are important, and that no one is left. And, we would like our students to feel good, whether you are that smart or not, or you are contributing in process. But then we are trying to, I would say, encourage, students who are not, like I would say, not much, but as I mentioned, less quick-witted kids, I guess if I were to address this problem, I would say before this event, like before using inquiry-based instruction, I should make it clear to my students that each one is important, that each one has different pace or levels, and that does not matter. We respect each one. Which is why we get to know our students, and then by knowing our students, like individual student in particular, and encourage, and we initiate that respect. We initiate that sense of belongingness, regardless of your, I would say, contribution in the learning process. So there must be a very good orientation, and it will become like, if you would like to put it way, it's a policy in the class. And then that must be agreed upon. And that must be clear to all students. So in that way, they will be feeling that they are one community in the learning experience, to prevent one to shy away and disgusted to participate, because that is manifested in the attitude of the students, whether they are happy or sad or embarrassed. And we come there to address, to support our students, because we would like learning an enjoyable experience. I hope I have shared my thoughts. Emmanuel. But thank you so much for your insight and for your question. Okay, Jonoel, okay, good that you come. It's okay if you're late. We have here from Sister Maria Reciosida. Sister, welcome back. Usually this type of instruction is used in doing simple research. Yes, doing research. I agree with you when you are conducting research, because doing simple research is already a training of our students to be critical thinkers, to develop their higher order thinking skills. But then from the basic research, I would say, they would then be able to establish the research skills necessary to explore, I would say, a real research. But we see in the simple research that we are teaching our students in the class, they can use that at home. They can make trial and error, for example. They can create their own procedures, their own steps of doing things, like how to make a basket, for instance. And then because the mind is already trained on some steps of doing things, then they would be able to make their own. That is a kind of, I would say, scaffolding. That's what we are doing in the class. In that simple research, you're doing like confirmation inquiry, for example. Or even if you are going to ask your students to do a research, topic, and then do research in the library, you may use the structure or guided research. That's very, very great. And from simple research, we are bringing our students to perhaps wide research or complex research later, and then they are ready. We start from the basic. Okay, thank you, sister. Then if you'd like to allow, sister, just feel free. And then we have here from Maria Luana Dalmundo. Thank you for a very informative presentation. As for the inquiry-based instruction, what do you suggest for the teachers to use when they frame question? In English or in the language familiar to the learners? This is really, interesting question, but that would depend. I guess in the Philippines, for example, because we can use inquiry-based instruction regardless of levels of education. We can use this in the primary level, but the material is so easy. So we can use, as I said, different levels of education, but we adjust the material and the kind of question that we ask. Like we start from the very familiar to students, for instance, in the primary level. Okay, but in the question is not that one. The question is that what language to use, in framing question, English or the language familiar to the learners. If, for example, if the medium of instruction is English in that level of education, then you can use English. But the point is that if the students are not so fluent in English, you can start with the language of the learners maybe, and then bring them to English. Because if English language is the medium of instruction, we are developing our students the skills of communicating English, written or spoken. That would depend now on the level of your students, and that would depend on the readiness of your students. Because in the differentiated instruction, if we see the needs of our students, we cannot impose to them what the idea or the language they are not ready. So in that sense, then you can group your students into their language usage. Like if you are fluent or they can speak English, well, they can have this one. That will depend on how you are going to do. But the point is use the language that the students can understand. But then we have to raise our students to the language that we are going to develop our students into. See if the level of the medium of instruction is English, then you have to use English. But you can start from the language familiar to your learners. Okay. Now we have here from Sareen. If asked of the two topics, how they are distinguished and what are the key elements to respond. I hope I got the question clear, but what I understand is that you are giving them, or they are, I don't know if you give the two topics or you ask students to suggest topics, two topics, how they are distinguished and what are the key elements to respond. Now, again, if you are going to ask questions from students about the topics, that will depend now on I would say the area of research or the area of experiments. If it is about health, for example, or is it about air pollution or waste management, the topics, that's the theme, And then the topics that are going to be explored must be within the theme, And how they are distinguished. Maybe I did not get you clearly, but we are going to, I don't know, but on the part of the students, for example, if you're going to see how to choose the two topics, that they have formulated. Yes, Sarim, the floor is yours. Maybe you would.
Can you hear me now?
Sorry. Yeah. Yes. Sure.
Okay, so sorry, I think my question comes to you. Actually, I just want to know how the two topics that we have discussed earlier, student-centered instruction and inquiry-based instruction, what are the key differences between the two? For example, how can we elaborate on the elements that are under student-centered instruction or which are under inquiry-based instruction? So.
Okay.
It's like similar to me between the two, how we can distinguish.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Sarim. It's clear to me now. I was trying to capture. Now, I would say to distinguish, to be able to identify the topics, first, if we are going to look into the inquiry-based instruction, one element that we have to consider here is that do the students have the background of the topic? Are they familiar of the topic? Because in the inquiry-based instruction, they might, because it's a process. They have the topic that they are going to undergo the process. Like there is that method, the procedures, and going deeper, digging the topic. Now, if they are not that familiar of the topic, they might have problems later. And problems in the sense that they might have the difficulty of finding the sources, because they're going to expand their understanding of the topic. Maybe the sources of or the materials are not available, and they have limited idea about that, and so they could not also find ways, how to elaborate. So that's one thing. One element is the students have the background of the topic. Maybe another element to distinguish the topic is that the topic is researchable. I mean, it has materials, it has sources, I mean, accessible to students. Like they can find answers to questions, maybe in the library, or maybe interview the family. Depends on the levels of education the students are. And then another element would be the readiness on the part of the students, like if they're going to handle the topic, are they ready to go through, kind of. So, and basically, you would also consider here if the topic is under the umbrella, the theme, of the class. If you are, for example, having a study on waste management, just for example, so is the topic really relevant, or relevant, timely, and interesting? So those are things that we're going to look into when deciding the topic of the students to be explored, not to be investigated later. And in terms of student-centered instruction also, we're going to look into the capacity of the students, to handle such topic. By capacity, do they have the I would say, the skills to be able to go through the steps, the process of conducting such experiment or research. Okay. So I hope I have shared my thoughts, Sarim. And thank you for asking. Thank you for asking. So you're from Emmanuel. You need it, ma'am. Thank you, Emmanuel. Each one in the class must feel important and respected and have a sense of belongingness. Thank you for these insights. Thank you too for your insights. We have from Roniel Campanero. I think inquiry-based learning works at every level of education by encouraging curiosity and self-directed exploration of a subject, especially science, since it focuses on engaging students in the material and shifting the process of learning to the student. It helps learners retain more information. I totally agree with you, Ronil. That's really, inquiry-based learning can be applied at every level of education. That would now depend on the teacher's innovation and creativity to modify and to design, a topic, an activity where students are engaged by encouraging their curiosity, when students are curious, you cannot stop them from doing. They would really explore. So we allow it to happen in the class. So long as we are there, and we monitor, we help them in process, especially kids. But then when we're in the college and university students, well, that's great. They already have been built, I suppose, in basic education. So we can give them open inquiry, But yeah, different levels, every level we should use. And science is really very, I would say, important subject here, that we develop our students the skills of investigation, the skills of creation and designing, which they can then apply to different disciplines. But that does not mean only science. All subjects can use inquiry-based instruction. Literature can do that. English can. That would depend on the teachers, designing activities to let students engage and develop their higher order thinking skills. Critical thinking, for example. Okay. Thank you so much, O'Neill, for your insight. Great. Now we have from Norven. In deepening the topic, prior knowledge is very important in order for the teacher to dive into, and much more affected by instructional design, which can reduce extraneous cognitive load or increase germane cognitive load. You're right. Yes. Prior knowledge is very important. We could imagine if we are going to conduct a research and then the topic is very new to us. That's really a very problematic. I need prior knowledge of this before I can go through. I should need the background knowledge on this one before I can proceed. This is really very essential. The foundation should be familiar. It will take much time though, but you must take time to get the background, prior knowledge of the topic you're interested to dive in. You're right, Marvin. And thank you for your insight. Okay, so again, when we speak of inquiry-based instruction, the heart of the instruction is the students' questions, students' ideas. How we uncover the potential of the students, how we raise the students' awareness of what's happening around and ask questions. What's happening in the classroom? What's happening to the materials I use in my class? And then ask questions. And this is just a challenging approach. Why? Because there may be questions from students that we teachers find difficulty to answer. Because students are exploring. But I also mentioned in my presentation that I guess that was on the student-centered instruction, that we teachers must also admit that we don't know all, we don't know everything. See, that we are also learners, that we join the exploration. Why? Because information now is available. Information is just a click and you get the information. We don't. There are new things, new discovery that teachers must also explore. We do know that teachers are very explorative and they have gone far. But what we are doing then in the inquiry-based instruction is to help the students construct meanings, construct new knowledge out of the information they have gathered. That is our role. And we admit that we also are journeying them, but only we are a bit advanced because there are many things that we already have learned. But there are still things that we are learning. Okay? So, Michelle?
Yes.
Do we have some questions or insights?
From my end, I guess that we have answered all the questions and queries from our participants.
Okay. So, thank you so much. I would like to end our session by really thank you all for participating and joining our session today. And I hope you have captured some thoughts and ideas from the sharing during our Q&A, as well as from the video, that you might think to apply in your own context. Thank you so much. And I hope to see you again in the upcoming session.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anita, and thank you to your attentive participants from our dear participants. Before we close our session today, I would like to remind you with some important notes. First, all materials and assignments are available on our program's website under the Modules 2022-2023 section and are also now shared into the chat box. So please kindly download and save them to your devices. Also, please complete the assignment on the 2 Google Forms before Monday, December the 5th, and your assignment will be subjected to evaluation before we issue the e-certificate to your email. Second, the name on your assignment will be the one used in the certificate of completion, so please make sure to input it correctly. Finally, please fill in your email in our attendance link for today's section. Kindly support spreading information about this MOTP to your colleagues and friends to make a better impact on our community. We look forward to meeting you again soon, and goodbye for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And have a wonderful day.
Good day, Dr. Anita, everyone.
Thank you, Doc. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
See you.
Goodbye. Thank you for joining.